CardGamesTV1 Podcast, channel update, life update, whatever you want to call it, right? Competitive update, I guess I would call it that. So, there's a lot I'm doing right now. I played a pre-release this weekend, so that was cool. There was 4 rounds. Yeah, 4 rounds. We started off with a 1-round loss because apparently we weren't there on time. Part of the problem is that my locals doesn't promote their events like they should. They're more like they'll host. That's the weird thing. Like they'll host it whenever they feel like it. Right? It's like when they feel like it, or they can get it, or if enough people come to the card shop, right? Then they'll host an event. So I know every Sunday, they host Dragon Ball Super, and every the Saturday they host Yu-Gi-Oh. So the thing is, it's timing, because sometimes the event will start at 1 or start at 4 or start at 5. So it's a little confusing when the time keeps changing. And they're not promoting it. They have an official Facebook and Instagram. Ironically, their Instagram account follows me on Instagram, but they don't post on Instagram or Facebook when they are having these, what time they're going to be having these events. At least point out that they could be hosting it, having the event at a certain time if there's enough players. The main thing is put out some information so that way me and other people like me can know when to come through, right? We have, the thing is, most of us have lives, right? Like, we have other things to do besides, play card games. Card games are awesome, don't get me wrong, but we do have things to do, so, it's important to let us know a certain time that we should be there at the same time, and then from there, you make that decision if we're going to have an event, or we're just going to play casually, right? And I have no problem going there just to play casually. The thing is, I would like to know the timing. Now, I'm more interested in playing, competitive, right? I'm more interested in playing in a tournament style of setting where we're taking turns, we're going through rounds and stuff like that, and there's a time limit for us to play, which is fun and challenging. Yeah, that's what I should make this podcast about. Oh, man, my issues. The difference between competitive play and casual play. Oh, man, there's a big difference. Too many people like to use competitive play as a way of certifying somebody, or no, not certifying, credibility, which is why a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, I mean, it's a lot, but it's not like everybody, right? So let's say, 10 people, like 10 people will tell me that, it's like I need to top an event in order for them to like listen to what I have to say, I would get more, people to listen to me, check out my channel and stuff like that. I would get more followers and all that stuff if I topped events. So it's like, okay, I get that idea that could be a possibility, right? Because the thing is, think about it. If I topped an event, right, and then nothing happens, then what, right? I top an event and nothing happens, right? People still, don't care, as it were, right? Like, because for me, it's like, if you don't, like, if I tell you 2 + 2 = 4, no. If I tell you not playing super combos, it's something you can do, or you can learn to get to the point where you don't need super combos, right? As an example, then you should see. I'm from the generation where things were true until you proved that it was wrong, right? Everybody was telling the truth until you proved that they were lying. But now, in this current day and age, everybody's lying until you prove that they were not lying, right? So everybody's wrong until you prove them. You prove that they're telling the truth. I mean, until you prove that they're right. So everybody's wrong until you find out they're right. So there's a lot of misinformation. So everybody assumes everything they see they can't believe. Even though there's nothing wrong with having the idea, don't believe everything you see, but it's the idea, don't believe everything. Not don't believe nothing, don't believe everything. So, fact check, right? Double check, right? Make sure that you are not believing a lie, but don't think everything is a lie. That's the confusion some people have nowadays. They want to assume that everything is fake, that everybody's fake, everybody's pretending to have a life. It's better than it really is, and this, and that, third, and that's unfortunate. You know, the worst thing you can do is lie to yourself. All right, it's bad enough to lie to other people. That's just being a shitty person. But lying to yourself, that's just terrible. That's the worst thing you can do to yourself, is to lie to yourself, and other things like self-harm and whatnot. But lying to yourself is just as harmful as, you know, hurting yourself, right? So it's like not a good idea to lie to yourself, right? Because then that means you're gonna make decisions and live a life of lies. So it's not a good idea to lie to yourself. Ain't nothing wrong with positive thinking, right? There's nothing wrong with like fake it till you make it. You know, like, you know, see yourself, you know, visualize yourself as a you know, a person who wins events, for example, right? I'm a competitive player, I top, and see yourself that way. That's good, because that's positive affirmation, right? So you more likely are going to work harder to achieve that that goal. So it's just basically set a goal and then, you know, put effort to achieve it, as opposed to being lazy, talking about you're the very best that no one ever was, to catch them at your real test, right? And then you don't do shit to achieve that, right? So some people will use that as a you know, like, hey, since we don't see you play, you know, we can't believe you and trust you and what you say. It's like, fair enough. I don't disagree with that idea. You need some visual proof, right? And, you know, I want to afford people the proof. Sometimes I forget that I actually have gameplay, but that lets me know that people are not really looking for what they're asking for. Like, people will talk about, will tell me like, I want to see some gameplays. I want to see some gameplays. It's like, ironically, I have over 60 videos of me playing the game in real life and on tap. Very few games of me playing in real life, but definitely a lot of games of me playing on untapped. So even I'm surprised how many gameplays I have, considering the fact that I'm so busy doing many other things. And it's like, I got a lot of gameplays. I have more than enough gameplay for y'all to be able to watch and judge and be able to be like, oh, okay, you know, he knows what he's talking about, this answer, right? Like, to me personally, that should be the most important evidence, right? The most important piece of credibility, because some people, you know, want to, like I say, it's very few people, but there's some people out there that want to, you know, not give me credit, right? And they want me to give them what they consider the most important credibility, right, is topping events. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, right? Nothing wrong with that, topping events and whatnot. Who doesn't want to do that, right? But that's not, you know, the ultimate determining factor when it comes to being good at the game or understanding the game, you know. And some people, you know, I notice have a habit of complaining or misunderstanding the term good. Like, when you say you're good at something, people over exaggerate and think you're trying to say you're perfect, unbeatable or something. It's like, no, I said I'm good at the game. I didn't say I'm perfect. You know, I'm not perfect Cell, so clearly I'm not perfect. I can lose just like anyone else is. And there's a lot of people who topped events who lost a lot, but they kept on playing until they topped an event, right? The whole idea is to win more than you lose, not to never lose. It's to win more than you lose. And some people got that concept confused. You know, they think you gotta win all the time. It's like, no, you want to win all the time, but you're not guaranteed to win all the time. So the idea is to try to improve yourself more than anything and increase your win rate. You know, I made the last podcast was about patience, right? How important it is to incorporate being patient when you play. Because I notice, especially in this generation, everybody is in a hurry, right? They don't want to spend 30 minutes watching a video. They'll spend 1 to 2 minutes. Even my videos, like my deck profiles, get at most, on average, 2-minute views, even though it's a 30-minute video. I cut it down to like almost 10, 12 minute. So I drastically reduce my video deck profile videos to less than 50% of the time I normally would spend on it. So I'm spending way less to record and talk about the video. Talk about the deck. But I'm still getting less watch time for those videos than I should be. I should be getting, if I make a 10-minute video, somebody should be watching the whole entire video. The fact that people still only watch like the first 2 minutes of it, even though the video is way shorter, so they should have the time to watch the full video, they still don't. Hey, to each their own. I can't make them watch the full video, but at least I don't have, what I can do is not waste my valuable time in life making longer videos that no one's going to watch the entirety of. So I try to put as much information, like essentially 30 minutes worth of information, all into like 10 minutes or less. So I try to make things faster, which lets you know people ain't patient, and that's the problem, right? You're not patient enough. You're not going to get a lot. So the fact that I have to condense a lot of information down to a short period of time, that means you're going to get way less information. You're going to get important information, don't get me wrong. I try to make sure I give you the key points, the stuff that I want you to remember, but you're not going to get in-depth information. Like, it was ironic, some people pay for in-depth information, right? Some people will pay for like an hour or 2 hour long video about a deck profile, right? About a deck, and because the person topped. So that's the irony. It's like, wait, somebody tops an event, you'll gladly pay and watch a long ass video, but for free. But for free, you won't watch a 30-minute video on a deck. That's interesting, right? But to each their own. The point I'm making is that it's not being patient. And then if you're not being patient, that means you can make mistakes more. You can tap out at the wrong time because you weren't, you were so impatient, and you were like, I want to play this 5-drop right now, and on turn 5 instead of waiting for turn 6 to drop it. That way you can guarantee you have that one energy up for your negate or something. Especially if it's a floodgate negate like Violent Rays or Flying Nimbus or something like that. You always want to keep one energy up for that, right? But I do see a lot of people tend to not wait, right? They tend to be like, oh, I have a 5-drop, I have 5 energy, let me play it. It's like, no, you can wait. You can play a 4-drop, on that turn. You can play a 3-drop. You can play 2 2-drops. Think about it, right? You should have other options. It'd be strange if you don't have anything else other than that 5-drop on turn 5. You should have other cards you can play. So play them and keep one energy up, right? Another thing I was just thinking before I started recording this was the whole idea of like people playing a 1-drop on turn 1 to search out a card. Sometimes they want to search out a super combo, which is ironic, right? It's like, okay, you want to search out a super combo, that's cool, but is it going to be really useful at the time? But anyway, so then I was thinking of the fact that I noticed that a lot of people don't do a lot of damage. The first 4 damage is the easiest, and with the right deck, and I've played that, decks that I built that can output 6 to 7 damage on turn 1. It could produce more than that. I've produced up to 13 damage. Right? I was able to, with the right number of cards in my hands, like 5 cards. If I have 5 specific cards in my hand, and I'm playing a specific leader, I can output about up to 13 damage on turn 1. So with 1 energy, turn 1. So my opponent goes first, I go second, bang. I can do up to 13 damage. Not guaranteed that I'll do that much damage. And you only need 8 to win, but I'm not guaranteed to do all that damage. The idea is if I can output 16 damage and half of that gets through, that's 8 damage and you win, right? So the thing is to output more damage. As many double strikes as I can get out there, as many battle cards, 15k and above that I can put out there, swing. The more attackers, the more cards I can play in a single turn, on turn 1 no less, right? The more attacks I can put out, the more chances I have of dealing a lot of damage on turn 1, the chances of winning on turn 1 is possible. Not 100% likely. Your opponent should try to not die on turn 1, but it's a lot. It's highly possible, right? On turn 1 to deal 8 damage. Especially the more damage you can output, the better, right? Your leader is double strike. You play multiple battle cards that are double strike, right? One after another, after another, after another. Overwhelm, right? Attack. Like, you get the idea. Just play a whole bunch of attacks on turn 1 real quick. If, but you gotta have the right set of cards. And then you can output that much damage. But here's the funny thing, right? Just something as simple as a Napa super combo or the Cell super combo, which we have now, which is the green-yellow one, which can do the same thing Napa does. You combo and then you can play it in a Champa or E Supreme Kai, right? Just that alone, you can do 3 damage on turn 1. You swing with the leader, play the super combo, right? Bang, deal damage, then the super combo hits the field. So now you have a 10k body on board. Swing with the 10k to your opponent's leader. They don't negate, right? Because it's turn 1. They typically don't. Play tap an energy, Champa, right? So now you got 20k double strike. In order for them to stop that 20k double strike to a 10k leader, they need 15 combo power. That means a super combo and a 5k, or 3 5ks. So 2 to 3 cards from your hand just to stop the attack. Why give up 2 to 3 cards when you could just gain the 2 cards, right? This is some people's mindset, so that's why they'll take the damage. So you can pretty much guarantee 3 damage on turn 1 just with those 2 cards. With a super combo and a Champa, you can guarantee, or you can at least deal 3 damage turn 1, right? With just, and the way I deal a lot of damage turn 1, especially the first 4 damage, right? Since it's the easiest, and I always say that, the first 2 turns is when you want to do the most damage, because after that it'll be hard to do damage. Is with Goku Jr. and Vegeta Jr. Saiyan Scion, because it's a unison you could play for 1 energy. Swing with it, it's a 10k buy. Swing with the leader, that's a 10k buy, so you'll pretty much deal 2 damage with that alone turn 1. Then -1 from the Saiyan Scion to bring out 2 10k skillets. Swing with those 2, and your opponent will still be a 10k leader, so the likelihood of them hitting and your opponent not using cards from their hand to stop those attacks is very likely. So you're more likely going to deal 4 damage, especially if their leader awakens at 4. They want to take the 4 damage so they can awaken, because they prefer to be awakened. So you take advantage of that. So with one card, one unison, right? You turn 1, you can do 4 damage. Further proof that the first 4 damage is always the easiest. So right there, you're guaranteed 4 damage. That's simple. And that's just by using Saiyan Scion and some skillets. But if you don't want to use Saiyan Scion, you don't want to put skillets battle cards in your deck, you want much better, cooler cards, alright, fine. Napa super combo or Cell super combo, or a free play body like Bodyguard Legic. He's 15k, he's a blocker, he has other uses, right? Other than just being a free 15k you can swing with. You could play other free plays. If there's other free plays you can play, that's good. Like, there's some blockers that you can play for free if you have a specific leader, right? They're 5Ks, but hey, that's cool. They don't have to be 10k and above, because the thing is, you'll play them, right, for free. You'll swing with them, Champa, right, or E Supreme Kai, and bang, there'll be 15k double strike. That's good enough on turn 1. That's good enough to do damage. A 15k double strike is good enough for turn 1. I know. I've done it many of times, so it definitely works. So stuff like that. Or you can swing with the free play, right? Combo a 5k just to do 1 damage, and then swing with the leader and pay 1 energy, and then power up the leader to 20k double strike. That's the thing. You already start off with a 10k you can swing with, which is your leader. Your leader is your most reliable attacker, and most people overlook that. Most people don't think of it like that. They're so used to having the leader that they don't consider the leader as that important. They consider the awakening leader and the effects of the leader, trying to utilize the leader to gain card advantage and so that. So they'll utilize and they'll use the leader but they don't consider the leader like their most important attacker. It's just there just to be there, right? So they don't consider like, maybe I should be swinging with the leader and Champa turn 1 every chance I get. You know, first blood, as they say, right? Because the first 2 turns is the best time to do damage, because it's the easiest time to do damage. Most people are not thinking of defending turn 1, turn 2. They're typically planning to defend turn 3 and above. And the reason why is because of energy. If most people play a turn 1 card to search, maybe a turn 2 unison, that means they're not being defensive turn 1, turn 2, right? They're trying to set up for like a later game, you know, a strategy. So they'll play a 1 drop to search, they'll play the 2 drop unison, which probably is going to give them a +1 if it's the one that lets them draw, right? Type of unison, that type of stuff. So, or maybe the unison is a 2 drop blocker, whatever the unison is, and that's if it's a unison. It could be anything else, right? But it's like, that's a typical line of play. Turn 1, 1 drop, turn 2, 2 drop, right? So they're not being defensive on turn 1, turn 2, which is why it's the best time to do the most amount of damage, at least 4, right? You know, you could do 2 to 3, right, on the first 2 turns, that's something, but try to do 4. And then after that, go from there. Most people don't want to do 4 damage, mainly because they don't want their opponent awakening. But I'm all about my opponent being in the final form, right? My opponent awakening before me fighting them at my base form, right? Battling them with my leader on the front side, and using, you know, my unisons and battle cards and stuff like that to apply pressure on my opponent's leader to make sure their life is going down, right? And then late game, awaken my leader and take advantage of whatever my leader does. Whether my leader draws 2 cards, untap 2 energy, or draws a card, untap energy, or does rejuvenate, or whatever my leader does, I'll take advantage of that late game. And sometimes some leaders are late game leaders. Like, some leaders are good as finishers, because on their awaken side they have like the ability to get power boost and double strike or triple strike or whatever, and so that makes them great as finishers. Which is why you shouldn't be in a hurry to awaken, because they are late. They're more of a late game card than they are early game. So it doesn't make sense to try to awaken early when they are more of a late game type of leader. And some people don't consider leaders that way. Some people don't consider certain leaders as defense leaders. You know, offensive leaders, right? Like a leader that automatically has double strike, so that's pretty aggressive. Like, imagine having a leader that has double strike, and you're double strike turn 1, double strike turn 2, double strike turn 3, you know what I mean? Like, you only need 4 leader swings to win. So if you're constantly like super comboing your leader on the first 4 turns of the game, you know, your chances of dealing a lot of damage, at least 4 or more, is pretty high. So like I always say, the first 4 is the easiest, the next 2 requires a little effort. So the first 6 damage is, you know, it's not as hard as the last 2 damage. The last 2 damage, your opponent's going to do everything they can to prevent the last 2 damage. And it'll be easier for them to defend the last 2 damage when they have 3 or more energy, right? And not only that, when they have 3 more energy and a shitload of cards in the hands. Especially if all your damage, all the 6 damage you dealt them was not crit damage, you just added 6 cards to the hands. So they should have close to a 12 hand size, right? Or at least their hand size should be above 6 cards. So if their hand size is above 6 cards, their ability to defend the last 2 life they have is a lot higher. And now they have more energy. And if they have the ability to untap energy, like Soul Striker or something like that, so depending on, you know, what they're capable of doing defensive wise. And you know, most negates, especially floodgate negates, are 1 energy or 2 energy, like Topo, you know, Oceanus, stuff like that. And there's some, you know, floodgate negates, battle cards, they're like 3 or 4 energy, obviously, for late game purposes. But, you know, for you know, mid game, you know, which is turn 3, turn 4, mid game, you know, you have the, you know, the 3 to 4 energy. I mean, you'll have the 2 to the 1 or 2 energy cards you're gonna negates, floodgate negates you're gonna use, and still have energy up just in case. Or you'll be able to play some cards. The idea is you want to make plays, right? You want to play your unisons, you want to play your battle cards, right? But still have the ability to use your negates, right? You still want to be able to defend yourself after you swing at your opponent, right? The goal is to hit them but not let them hit you, right? So always keep your guard up, keep your defenses up. So a lot of my concepts for when I play the game is like based off of fighting, like actual fighting, which is one of the selling points for me when it came to Dragon Ball Super, was the fact that it's, you know, based off of a fighting anime, you know, Dragon Ball, right? And that it feels like, you know, it feels like when you're playing, it does feel like a fight, right? So then you're going to incorporate, you know, well, I do anyway, since I train in martial arts. I incorporate the idea of like fighting, you know, keeping your defenses up, you know, so you always want to keep one energy up and whatnot. That's why I put a lot of time and effort trying to figure out, you know, certain details about the game. That's where I got the first 4 damage is the easiest. You know, it's kind of like jabbing somebody in the face, right? It's easy to just throw a quick jab and catch somebody off guard and just bang, hit them in the face, and they'll be like, okay, and they'll try to block more, right? So then you'll throw a couple more jabs deliberately at their arms, right? They're defending themselves, so you're deliberately jabbing their defense because you're trying to weaken the defense, and then go in with the right hook or left hook, right? Try to go in with your strong punch and hopefully knock them out, right? That's your goal. So you jab, and then right hook, right? As they say. So, you know, that's a boxing strategy. So that kind of stuff is what you'll be doing when you're playing, right? Is every time you swing in with your leader, you're essentially jabbing your opponent, right? You're trying to see if they'll either out combo the attack. That's why you swing and typically say no combo. Well, I do anyway. I do that a lot. I swing, no combo. I swing, no combo. And the whole idea is for me to swing and never have to combo, right? Save my combo for when I'm defending, right? Keeping my guard up, as opposed to comboing when I'm attacking. So that's why you want to find cards that have high attack power but low cost. Being able to play a 30k for 1 energy or 2, priceless, right? Or free, even better. So, because you already know that whether their leader's awakened or not, it's going to require a lot of combo power to stop it. Granted, negates and blockers exist, but you will do your best to make sure they don't have blockers, that hopefully they don't have energy for negates, or they don't have free negates, and you're just relying on when you swing, they'll combo to try not to take damage, or they'll take it. That's one of 2 possibilities. They'll either out combo the attack or they'll take it. Ideally, you want them to take it, but you have no problem with them not taking damage and comboing, because you know you will. If they combo, you know you will deal them damage later anyway. Because eventually their hand size is going to get so low, you will be able to, in one turn, take away. If they have 5 life, in one turn you can deal them 5 damage. I mean, I was doing that at the event yesterday. My opponent was like at 5 life, and I'd take them, you know, take them 5-0 or 5-1 in a single turn, right? Just because they had a low hand size. Because every one of my attacks was very high. There's a couple of times where I would attack like a battle card and they'll try to keep it, so then they'll combo to keep it. It's like, oh good, you gave up cards for nothing. You gave up cards for nothing. I didn't need the battle card to leave the field. I was just trying to take advantage of the fact that I could, with an attack, get rid of it. But if you want a combo to keep it, thank you. I consider that hand control, that you did combo to keep a battle card that I didn't care for. Especially if I have a floodgate negate, I don't care, because I'm going to prevent you from attacking me anyway. So I don't care, you know, about you having a board. And eventually I'll play a board wipe. And that's another thing. Most players don't try to incorporate board wipes or the ability to get rid of battle cards, right, through skills with their defensive strategy. Right? You'll play negates, right? You'll play blockers, but you don't combine board wipes with that. So you use a floodgate negate to survive a turn when your opponent's trying to go wide, but then you don't clear the board afterwards, right? And it's like you should, right? And the idea of and you definitely want some, especially you want to do 2 things. You want to clear the board and deal them damage, right? So playing a battle card, for example, that can board wipe and deal 2 or more damage, ideally, right, is something you should look into, something you should consider, because, you know, dealing damage should be the most important thing, but also not getting bum rushed or getting jumped on your opponent's battle cards would be a good idea, right? So think of it that way. Yeah, think of your opponent's battle cards as their friends coming in to jump you. Well, you wanted it to be a one-on-one fight, you versus your opponent, but now they got their homies there trying to jump you. Well, board wipe. Drop a nuke on them, right? So board wipe, get rid of their battle cards, do a skill, and then swing, right? That's something I notice I see a lot, that somebody will survive a turn, and then it gets to their turn, and then, either they slowly attacking a couple battle cards here and there with a leader or unison, a battle card, trying to clear the opponent's board, which is okay. Not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying it's like, that's a lot of attacks, valuable attacks you're wasting on attacking when you could have just played a battle card or a unison or even an extra card that can just clear their board and then go from there, right? This is why I play the Super Saiyan 4 Goku Protector of the Earth Unison, because he has a floodgate ability, so it'll protect me next turn. He's 15k, good enough to swing at my opponent's leader. But then he has the -2 ability to ignore and barrier, bounce all my opponent's battle cards to the hand, which puts in a lot of work. Trust me, I definitely put that card to work. And so it helps me clear the board. It helps me, defend myself on the clapback. And then I'm able to swing with it, right? So it does a lot for 5 energy, right? Which is a good thing to have. Then there's the 3-drop Goku, Kaioken Goku that I have in my red decks. Same purpose. It's like if I survive a turn, then I play Goku, clear the board, and then go from there, right? Swing, deal some damage, and you want to reset your opponent's board every chance you get. So you gotta make sure you have some board wipes. We have the 2-drop, what's his name? The 2-drop Finn. We have that for black. So that's the black's board wipe. We need a couple more. We do have a couple Overrealms. One just recently got banned, which was an Overrealm board wipe. But you get the idea. I just got a Super Saiyan 3 Bardock 5-drop Overrealm that has the ability to warp 6 cost and higher battle cards, so that's useful. So the main thing is try to make sure you have some board wipes. Especially if you're playing competitively, you should definitely be having board wipes. If you don't play board wipes when you play casually, hey, teach them. But competitively, definitely should have board wipes. I think I'm getting off on the topic. I have so much to say, right? The update is that I'll be streaming more, right? Or play more. Obviously, I've been going to locals, so that's good. I've been able to play at locals, so that's nice to have that as a thing. I will try to play more on Untap. Try to do more IRL duels because I'm currently moving to a new location, so I'll be roommating with my teammate. So we'll definitely be able to do more gameplays. Definitely will make it easier to do to play test and prepare for events and stuff like that. So that'll be a thing. What else? Yeah, that's the thing. Definitely be trying to play more, trying to go to more events. That'd be awesome. Team CardGamesTV1, right? And let's see. But oh yeah, the difference between competitive and casual. I kind of got off topic. Competitive and casual. One of the things I noticed that's different from competitive play and casual play, which is why it's annoying, when some people try to make it like competitive is like a really big standard. Like if you try to make it seem like the true test of your skills as a player is more measured in competitive play than in casual play. And it's like for me, I've tried both. I play casually and competitively, and no, competitive is not a true measure, especially in Dragon Ball Super. It's not a true measure of your skills as a player. And part of it is because when you play competitively, for example, is a lot of your wins, a lot of your W's can just come from buys, right? People not showing up, people dropping out, so you don't have an opponent. Since you don't have an opponent, you automatically get the W. So most of your W's in a competitive scene will come from stuff like that, or your opponent scooping, right? Your opponent conceding the match to you because they notice you have certain cards that will make the game harder for them, right? Like, let's say you play Black Mass Sane or something, the one-drop Black Mass Sane, and your opponent doesn't want to spend the time trying to outplay it. They be like, oh man, that's a weakness to my deck. That makes the game harder for me. I don't want to deal with it. Blah blah blah. So then they'll just concede and give you the match, right? Just because it's like, oh, it's too much of a hassle. I don't want to try to play through this and end up losing anyway. You know, since I feel that I might lose, instead of, you know, playing the game and seeing if they do or do not lose, because they could win for all they know, but they rather not take the chance, right? They don't want to spend the time to find out, as they say, right? They don't want to take the time to find out if they're going to win or lose. So they'll just assume that they will lose because, you know, their deck is weak to Black Mass Sane, as an example. So then they'll just scoop and let you win. So you can win just because your opponent doesn't want to spend, you know, try to play the game, right? So either your opponent's you don't have an opponent, you get a W, or your opponent doesn't want to play out the match, so you get a W. So it's not a true test of your capabilities of playing the game if your W's are just coming from your opponent's not playing. So that's one thing that's different from competitive play and casual play. It's like casual play, your W's come from you actually playing the game and finishing the game. That's one of the differences from competitive and casual. When you say that you won 10 times in casual play, you actually did win 10 times. You actually played out full games, full matches, right, and you won 10 times. But when you say you won 10 times competitively, there's a possibility that 5 out of the 10 matches W's, right, wins that you got were probably from buys, or your opponent gave you the win because you played certain cards that made the game harder for them, and they just didn't want to bother playing out the game, so they just gave it to you. And that's not a true test of skill, right? You know, because you didn't play out the game to see who, you know, makes the better decisions in the game and, you know, played the best, right? If people are just scooping, people are just quitting because, oh man, you got that card, or certain matchups, because I hear that a lot, like, oh man, this matchup is an auto win or auto lose and stuff like that, right? For me, every match is essentially an auto win for me, right? I assume it anyway. I expect every match to be an auto win for me, but you know, it's just the idea that, you know, certain matchups is, you know, it's not the ideal matchup for certain people, and for me, I've never really felt that way per se. Like when it comes to a Soul Striker, it's one of those deck leaders where I'm like, yeah, that leader's going to be a problem for me to play against. It's more of like, it's just going to be a problem, not necessarily that it's like a bad matchup or anything like that. It's just like, oh, that leader's going to be a bit of a problem. So it's just a matter of just playing differently against that leader than anything. And that's about it. It's just the understanding that if I play against Soul Striker, that deck is going to be able to attack and defend. But I'm already going to try to be doing both anyway. I'm going to try to attack you, but keep my defenses up. So it's not too different, right? And if my leader awakens, untaps 2 energy when I awaken, then essentially I have a one-time, right, Soul Striker effect, basically, right? Untap 2 energy, so I can save my leader's awaken ability, right? I try to go for game, and let's say I don't succeed in going for game. Okay, I awaken my leader so I can have 2 energy, and then use the 2 energy for like Topo, Oceanus, or Floodgate Negates, or whatever, right? Whatever I'm trying to do defensively, right? So it just depends on how you use what you got. You can literally use your leader untap to energy ability, right? Awaken, like if you're Soul Striker. You don't have to play Soul Striker, right? You can play any blue leader that untaps to energy, and if you use it right, it'll be like Soul Striker, right? Because sometimes you just need to untap to energy just one time for it to make a big difference. Granted, Soul Striker can just do it every turn, right? Every turn. That's what makes it, an issue, because it's good for grinding for late game, right? But you could get a similar result, because like I said, it depends on how you play. So sometimes some people don't want to play. Some people have the mindset of like, it's more about the cards. So if my opponent has a 1-drop Black Mass Sand, they play it, and that's a problem for me. You know what? It's a problem. I don't want to deal with it, so I won't. Instead of actually trying to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, I've experienced Black Mass Sand a couple times before. My opponent playing it, and it's like, yep, that card's gonna be a little annoying, but I do my best, and I'm like, I make sure I have cards in my deck that can, get rid of battle cards and, not have to worry about it. Not just that, also make sure my battle cards are strong, because if I'm right, Black Mass Sand mainly triggers from playing, I think 15k or less or something like that, through skills, and and you drop 2 cards in your hand. So if you're playing 20ks and above, you should be good. If I'm right, it's been a long time since I've seen Black Mass Sand's effect, but it's just, you got to incorporate your skill, right? You got to incorporate your experience. Skill, experience, one and the same for me. So instead of focusing on trying to have cards specifically to beat out specific cards and whatnot, it's like, sometimes how you play is just as good as actually having a card that does something. If you use 2 cards properly, right, or in a combination, you could board white if you use 2 cards in the right order. So, that level of thinking can go a long way, because you're using your knowledge and experience to do things that you normally couldn't do unless you had a specific card that does that, right? Like I could get the results or the outcome of Baby Hatchjack if I play like 2 to 3 cards together in the same turn, and I can get a result where my opponent's like, okay, I end my turn, like, awesome. I mean, there's a couple of times where I dropped Baby's Gohan's Baby's minion, right? It has Baby in the name, right? Baby's minion, and it felt like Hatchjack because my opponent's like, okay, I end my turn, like, yes, please. Even though they had a huge hand size, they didn't want to lose not 1 card from their hand, so they ended the turn like, ooh, that's a nice little 3-drop Baby Hatchjack right there. So, I've had that happen a couple of times, especially this weekend. So it's just like, okay, it's not Baby Hatchjack, it's Gohan's Baby Minion, Baby's minion, but it worked just as good, so I can't complain. As long as I'm getting the outcome that I want, which is to get the extra turn, because I'm trying to play, a 4-drop next turn, or whatever I'm trying to do next turn. It's worth it, right? Especially if I'm trying to play my Boo, right? Trying to play my Boo Unison, and start applying a lot of pressure with them. It makes sense. I want to try to get to that extra turn, so that kind of stuff. So the other thing about what makes competitive less of a test of skill is the time. Because since you have a time, you can actually you can win because you have more life than your opponent when time was called. Right? Not win because you reduce your opponent's life to 0, just because you had a little bit more life than them. That's it. It's your turn. You dealt y'all both had the same amount of life, but you dealt them 1 damage. Time was called, and now you win just because you dealt 1 damage, right? Just because you have more life than them, right? You didn't beat them. You just gotta win. So that's the difference. That's why it's like, for me, it's like, I'm not trying to crap on competitive play or anything and say that it's, not worth anything per se, right? What I'm trying to say is that there's a big difference. So trying to use competitive play as a measure of somebody's skill level, somebody's knowledge or experience in the game is not logical, right? You're just trying to make something out to be more than it really is, right? Just like when somebody says, "Oh, this is the best deck in the format," this is the best deck ever. It's like, that's the most overrepresented deck at an event, and then the reason you think it's the best deck ever is because a lot of people are playing it, but doesn't really mean it is the best deck ever, because there's probably decks that are way better. The thing is it's just the most represented. So if a deck tops, if somebody tops with let's say a Krillin deck or something, using the Krillin leader, they're like, okay, was it just one person playing it and they played it very skillfully and they topped, or was it like out of 30 players or more players than that, right? And let's say there was like 20 players playing that leader. Was it more because of over-representation that the deck topped? Or was it the skill level of the players? So to say that, these players, this person, this deck is really awesome because, it outperforms or some shit like that. It's like, nah, it was just overrepresented. So the mathematical high probability of it topping is very likely, because that means there was a lot of mirror matches. So again, when you have a lot of the same decks, don't be surprised that at the end of the event, a lot of those decks, right, were still standing, right, are at the top tables, right? I'm not surprised if I see a whole bunch of the same decks top 8, because it's like, yeah, they were the same decks, so it was just more down to how many times the decks won, right? And the number of decks that existed at the time. That's what determined the day top. So I never see it as like, if I see the same deck multiple times in the top, as, oh, that's the best deck. No, to me that's just overrepresented. Too many people played the deck, so of course the top is going to be full of those decks. What I look for when I look at like a top 8 or something like that, I look for the decks that aren't overrepresented. I look for the decks where it's like, oh shit, somebody was playing a Boma deck, or somebody was playing a Pilaf deck, or somebody else was playing a Dr. Euro deck or something like that, or Dr. Mew or something like, oh, somebody was playing some obscure deck, right? A deck that is not overrepresented at all or barely played at all, and it topped. So I look at those decks, and I look at their positioning on the top 8, because to determine which one of those decks was a really good deck. It's like that deck had to be really good. That deck probably went up against all these other decks. Let's say every other deck at the top was Invoker. Okay. The fact that there's a peel-off deck in the top 8 among all these Invoker decks, to me that means the peel-off deck is really, really good. And it seems to be really, really good when you're playing against Invoker, and then that's another thing you have to check is their matchups. Then you want to find out from the player, like, okay, what were your matchups like? Oh, I played Invoker the whole entire event. Oh shit, so all your matches was Invoker? Yep. And you beat them? Yep. So you have a really good peel-off deck that beats Invoker. That to me is impressive. I'm not impressed by somebody playing Invoker like, yeah, the whole event mirror matches. Okay, so then it's more of a coin flip basically. Whoever wins, whatever, doesn't matter. Invoker gets the credit for it, right? Because it doesn't matter who wins, right? It doesn't matter if it's this player or that player. Whoever wins, Invoker wins, right? Because y'all playing pretty much the same deck, so Invoker gets the credit. So then, of course, a lot of people who are outside the competitive scene, right? They're just watching it. They'll be like, oh my god, Invoker, so good, so good. And then they'll net deck Invoker, which is more over-representation, right? More people playing the same thing. No surprise, it's going to be viewed as the best because everybody is following it, right? But what's truly the best is when you're the outlier, when you're not doing what everybody else is doing, yet you're still winning. I look for that. That's what I look for. I look for the ones that stand out, because those are the ones that put in work. Those are the ones that are showing skill and whatnot, because they're not followers. They're the leaders, right? They're the ones that are doing stuff. That's why sometimes it's annoying when I hear some people trying to make it sound like if somebody is playing something different. Let's say Dr. Euro is playing the Dr. Euro deck and try to make it seem like that's something unique and special in the sense that it's like it's impossible to play that deck, right? Competitively or even at all. And be like, yeah, I just took it just for the fun of it, just for the heck of it, just to troll. It's a meme deck, blah, blah, whatever. Like just trying to downplay the deck's capabilities, the deck's usefulness, just because every other deck out there is like King Piccolo or something like that. You know, just because the other decks are more popular, King Piccolo, Soul Striker, Gogeta deck, or whatever is popular at the time. It's like, okay, those decks are overrepresented, they're popular among players, that's cool and all, but don't underestimate or don't downplay the Dr. Euro deck or any deck just to be exact, or any deck, because you know it depends on the player and how they play and their ability to deal the 8 damage. Right? Decks can't play by themselves; they still need the player. So that's why I'm not that impressed by the seeing decks that are overrepresented in topping, because to me it's, well, in the dud they topped because there's so many copies of that deck out there. Of course it topped. So no surprise there. But also, it's the fact is like it depends on the players. If you had a lot of good players playing and they top, well, no surprise, they're good. They could have topped with anything. They could have topped with a random stack of cards. They could have got their grandma to build a deck, and they could have took that deck and topped. Because it's more about their experience and their ability to understand how to combo, right? How to attack orders. They know overwhelm exists, so they try to make sure they don't get a surprise overwhelm attack for game type stuff. They know how to use negates and blockers and that kind of stuff. So it's like your knowledge and experience playing the game matters. You know how to mulligan to get the most out of your first couple of turns. Things like that matter and are the biggest determining factors of your success when it comes to winning or losing. And then there was the thing about being patient, right? Waiting for the right moment to try to go for game, or wait for your opponent to try to go for game first, and then take them out on the clapback, as opposed to trying to take them out before they went off, right? Let them go off. Let them try to go for game. Survive that turn, then win the game on the clapback, right? So that's why patience is way more important than an SCR. Way more important than how shiny your deck is, or how popular your deck is, or if your deck is sort of quote unquote the best deck in the format. Like, hey, to each their own. If people think that topping events is super credible, then that's fine. If you think topping events is super skillful, then that's fine. To each their own on their viewpoints. It's just that I take a lot to account when it comes to saying something is a true measure of somebody's skill, because for me a true measure of skill is somebody's ability to play out a game and win the game consistently. But you got to play out the game. You can't be you won because of time. You won because of your opponent not wanting to play out the game. Your opponent not showing up at all. Mirror matches, where a lot of your wins was mainly because of luck, because your opponent misplayed the deck's win con or combo or something, or the race aspect, where it's like you got to the deck's win con before your opponent did, just because you got lucky enough to draw the win con before your opponent got to draw it. Let's say the win con's catastrophic blow, right? Let's say we're talking about Invoker. Okay, your opponent got catastrophic blow before you. That's it. That's the only reason they won, because they got the card before you got the card. If you got the card before them, you would have won. So then it's, you know, it's less skill there. Like, I'm not impressed. It's like there's not much skill there. It's like, okay, good for you. Lucky you got the card before your opponent did. You beat them the way they would have beaten you, right? So you got lucky that you got to beat them. They had the same amount of opportunity to beat you, right? What they needed to do was get their card first, right? And they will beat you, right? They just needed to get to the end goal before you did. You just got there first, so lucky you. But, you know, these are factors that most people, I can tell, don't take into account. And a lot of times the ones who talk about, you know, competitive play being like a true measure of somebody's, you know, skill level, most of these people probably are not even competitive players themselves. They're probably casual players, and they just look up to competitive players, right? Look up to the idea of competitive play and see competitive play as super hyper skillful, and not really realize the truth that on mathematically, let's say 60 to 70% is more luck based or more situational, you know, winning in time, your opponent not showing up, right? Your opponent, you know, just conceding the match because they're tired and they don't want to play no more. That's another thing, misplays. Your opponent, because these matches, you know, when you're playing competitively, you know, there's a lot, you know, you're there for many hours. And if you didn't get enough sleep, if you didn't eat before the round started, the likelihood of you being tired, not thinking straight, like all these factors can come in. You could win just because your opponent is hungry. Think about that. There's no skill there. You literally win because your opponent's hungry. Your opponent's tired, sleepy. Right? I had a scenario where I was playing against somebody, and you know, we finished game one. If I'm right, yeah, I won. Yeah, I won game one, and then he went to go use the bathroom. We're still playing. So now he's using the time of the match to use the bathroom. Now, personally, you know, yes, I'm playing competitive because it's an event, but at the same time, it's not like a national worlds or something. It's not a huge event for me to make a big deal. Be like, Judge, my opponent is leaving to the bathroom. Like, that's bullshit. That's slow playing by using the crapper, right? Like, no, I'm not gonna make a big deal. It's like, you know, I'm just here more for fun than anything. I just want to play in a competitive setting per se. But when I start going to, like, you know, regionals and worlds and, you know, nationals and stuff like that, whatever, you know, those bigger events, yeah, I won't want it to be, you know, at a much higher level. I definitely will want to be Satan Judge and definitely call out slow play. That's another thing. I experienced a lot of slow play. Not trying to throw shade or anything, but it's like I've experienced it numerous times. I dropped 17 turn of the tides, and my opponent just feels compelled to be like, yep, and I swing, and then they'll be like, no negate. I'm like, wow, we really want to go through the steps? No negate, no combo. I have no cards in my hands. You have no cards in your hands, so clearly there's no negate. Clearly there's no combo. You're taking the crit damage, so hurry up and do it. The fact that my opponent suddenly, every other time when we have cards in our hands and stuff like that, I swing, it's like, no negate, all right, no, I don't combo, I don't combo either, I'll take it, and that's it. It'd be real fast. But once I drop turning tide, suddenly everything goes in slow motion. I attack, no negate, no combo. It's like, why are we going through that? Clearly there's no negate, no combo, no blocks, no nothing. I just turning the tides, you have no battle cards in play. So clearly there's no negate, there's no combo, there's no blocks, there's no nothing but taking the crit damage. So hurry up and take it. But they want to literally go through the steps of saying no negate, no combo. Alright, I take the damage. What do you mean, alright, you take the damage? Obviously you take the damage. It was obvious since I swung. You know, and the list goes on and on. Sometimes, even when I play Turning the Tides, they debate if if we're resolving the effect, they take forever to decide if they want to put the cards back in the deck or not. I'm like, if you don't have a card you can play in response to turning the tides, he has deflect obviously, but if you don't have a counterplay that you can play just so you can have a body on board, you know, at least has the 5k combo power or something, or a blocker, if you don't have something you can play before your hand goes away, stop taking forever acting like you're trying to decide if you want to put your hand back in your deck or not. It's like, clearly you're going to put it back if you have nothing to play. If you have nothing to play, put your hand back. Put it in the deck, shuffle, and grab your battle cards from your drop, put it in your deck and shuffle. But they always, every time I play turn tides, even though, the funny thing is, and I know it's slow play because somebody was like, oh, as soon as it's my turn, and they'll be like, turning tides, right? I pay 7, I play. They call my shot before I play. So they say I'm going to play turning tides before I actually drop it, but then try to act like the effect is a surprise. Like they don't know what turning tide does. Like, you called my shot. You knew I'm going to play it, but you're going to act like it's a surprise that I played it. Like you don't know what it does. Right? So I've had a couple of that happen. But anyway, again, not trying to make a big deal about it. I'm just noticing that it's like, yeah, if this was a regionals or something, that it would be a big deal. But since this is just locals and stuff, I don't make a big deal about it. But it's something I've noticed, is what I'm saying. It's like I'm noticing that, that it makes me feel like, damn, I have to play faster because time, and then the fact that my opponent could literally slow play to waste time. So it's like, damn, that is very unfortunate that people want to do that. Like, they'll play fast every other time, but once I have the advantage, suddenly they want to play slow. They want to act slow. So that's something I noticed, but not gonna make a big deal about it because again, it's just locals. But that's the thing. It's like, competitive and casual, very different, very different. And this has gone long enough. There's so many things, so much I could say, but that'll be the end of the podcast.